Right now, I'm tickled pink to say welcome back to Studio Q to Mr. Russell Peters.
Why, thank you, young Canderella.
Ooh, I like it. I like it already. Almost Famous is just like a capper to this epic tour, 250 shows in 25 countries. That's what rock stars do. Comics don't get to do that. What was that like?
I mean, first of all, this is not to sound like it's definitely not old hat to me at all, but it was my fourth arena tour, so I started to really get in the groove of it this time, and I think I really soaked it in a lot more this time. So it was pretty fun.
Is it hard to go back? Like once you've had a whole arena of people responding to a joke, is it hard to go back to a small room?
Not at all. I actually prefer it. I like doing both. The big, the small, the big, the small, just to you do the clubs so you don't forget where you came from,
Right.
and to make sure you're still a comic,
Yeah.
because you could get caught up in the arena world and then just want to sit when you get on stage in a club. You just want to hear them cheer for you, and you're like, no, you're a comic. Stop the cheering. Let's make them laugh.
Right, you got to work for it.
I like doing the arenas, and I also like doing the clubs.
So this was your longest tour ever. You have
This
been
one was a
around the
long
world.
one.
Are there any specific moments that you remember that really stood out in this one?
Geez, they're always so different as far as like new, fun, cool things that happen.
Yeah.
And then people you meet on the tours. You went to Saudi Arabia. I met a bunch of the princes and stuff, and and I was blown away by all that. And
Yeah.
I'd never been to Saudi Arabia before, and I received the best hospitality I'd ever received in my life.
Amazing.
That being said, it's not like I'm not aware of what goes on in Saudi Arabia,
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like, as long as I'm the recipient of the good part, I'm okay with it.
I'm gonna go. Did they fly you there on
No, but they put me like it was ridiculous hospitality. Like I stayed at the Ritz-Carlton. Excuse me. And it's early.
It is.
And the general manager of the hotel, the first morning after I woke up and I was downstairs having breakfast, how's your room, sir? I go, oh, it's great. He was a German guy. I go, it's great. I got to tell you, my whole team and I, we were all at breakfast, and we were just saying how it was the most comfortable bed we've ever been on in our lives. Like from the because you don't find that very often. You'll find a comfortable bed, crappy pillows.
Yeah.
You'll find great pillows, crappy bed. But I was like, from the pillows to the mattress to the bed sheets, everything I slept amazingly. And they were like, oh, that's great to hear. And then, 2-3 days later when we were leaving, I go up to my room and there's this giant package. And I open it, and it's a pillow top for the bed, like the mattress topper.
Oh my goodness.
And the bed sheets and stuff. They go, well, we couldn't give you the mattress because it'd be too hard to get back. But we gave you the sheets and the mattress top. And I was like, wow, this is amazing.
That is hospitality. You, sir, are not staying at the Holiday Inn or the Motel 7 anymore.
You know what's funny is I do from time to time.
Do you
Yeah,
still?
like
Life
when I'm on the
road.
road and I'm like, they'll be like, well, this place is $300 a night and this Motel 6 is like $100. I'm like, I'm taking that Motel 6 because the one for $3 doesn't seem like it's worth the $3.
Yeah, so true. In small towns, they usually aren't all that much different. How does your content, when you're on a tour that lasts for 2 whole years, how does your content evolve over that stretch?
The thing with the Almost Famous tour was when I did Toronto in, when did I play Toronto? 2014, I played Toronto. I played the ACC on the Almost Famous tour. And then from the time I played it in, I think, September, October of 2014 to when I taped it in April of this year, it was a completely different act.
Really?
And I was like, shit, I could have taped 2 specials out of this tour.
Yeah, you could have
literally from when the tour started to where the tour ended, it was a completely different act.
So you're almost working it as you're.
It was like Almost
touring.
Famous and almost 2 acts.
Wow, that's amazing.
It was cool, but a bummer at the same time because I'm like, well, I can't go back because I can't remember what I was saying.
Oh, yeah.
A year and a half ago.
Are there any bits, because comedy is so unique to the audience, are there any bits that, like, no matter where you are in the world, like, this is going to kill and you know it?
Yeah, I mean, there's always that. It's literally, when you're doing the world, just think about doing small town to small town and find out who that small town hates. You know what I mean? Like, I'm in Calgary. Let's make fun of Edmonton. I'm in Edmonton.
Right.
Let's make fun of Calgary.
Right.
You know, and you're just basically a traitor wherever you go. You have zero loyalty to anything.
And you are so used to big venues, as we were just talking about, but you chose to go to a small venue to tape it. Why?
I wanted to. Well, I hadn't taped in Canada in 13 years.
Has it been that long?
2003 was the last time I did a special in Canada. That was comics, and you know, it was a different ball game back then for me. When I did that, not comics, comedy now. Sorry, but when I did that, I had what was it? 2003. So I had 6 years to get that set ready.
Right.
So that's why it was like that's why people reacted to it. They were like, "It's so good," and I'm like, "Yeah, I had 6 years to polish it. It better be good." And then subsequently, it's been every 2 years. So you're pumping it out a lot faster, and your ability to polish it is you have to become a master polisher.
Yeah, and you got a few things on your plate right now, being a daddy as well.
Yeah, so
and all that stuff.
I forgot what the question was, but I just went out on this one.
Yeah, no, that's all right. That's cool. You got there. I want to talk about what you called it, almost famous. In terms of you living in the United States right now, and I'll take a little editorial license. North Americans in general, but I think Americans in particular, tend to think that they're the center of the universe,
Right?
And that white people are the majority of the people on the planet, when in fact it's black and brown people that are the majority of the people.
Well, not
on the
even the
planet.
black; it's more the brown and the yellows.
Yeah. So.
Can you still say that?
Yeah, you totally can.
Because I think it's about intent. People focus on the word. That's not the intent.
Yeah. Chris Rock has said that you are perhaps the most famous person that nobody's ever heard of. Boom.
Yeah.
Is he talking about the United States as opposed to the entire world? I mean, you sold out in 24 countries, and is that why you named it what you did?
It was kind of tongue in cheek, because every time you think you're famous, you'll meet somebody who goes, "I'm not familiar with you," and you're like, "Almost famous." It's like, I'm famous. He doesn't know me. Almost famous.
But you have experiences around.
I wanted to call it missed it by that much.
Oh my goodness! But you totally didn't miss it, really. I've spoken to comedians that have been out on the road with you that say it's like traveling with a rock star. That as soon as you land in the airport, people are yelling, "Russell, Russell!" And the lovely thing that they say is that you always stay and take the time to take pictures and what have you.
You have to.
With fans. What does it mean to you when you think back to those early shows? And now this rock star status, people screaming your name.
I very fondly look back on all the little crappy gigs I used to do in weird parts of Canada and weird parts of England and all over the world. I mean, I've done gigs in biker bars. I've done gigs where the hotel was so bad that I slept in the minivan that we rented. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was I did gigs because they gave me free pop. It was like, you can drink free pop all night. And I'm like, cool,
Sweet.
good deal. And, this is in my 20s. I didn't drink then. So I was like, yeah, free pop. I'm good. And what, chicken fingers? I'm in. I always used to balance it in my head. They were like, it's $20 for the gig. And I'm like, well, you got to understand, it's like the early 90s then, too. I was a young kid in my early 20s.
Yeah.
And I had no money to begin with. So, I was like, always justified it with, well, I could stay here and not do the gig, and I would be talking to people, and I'd be doing that for free. Or I can go to this gig, and I could talk to people and make $20. I'm going to go and talk to the people and make the $20.
So
I took any gig, anywhere, anytime. And that the problem is now my mentality is still that. And my
hard to
management
say no.
team, my agents are all like, hey, what are you doing? I go, I don't know. It's just a gig. It's not an important thing. It's just to do something. They're like, you got to strategically think these things through, kid. And I'm like, all right. That's why we have them, because if it was left up to us, we'd give away the farm.
yeah, that's
And you're native, so you know.
in Indigenous circles, that's when we say, "I'll have my white people talk to your white people."
That's right.
Work this stuff out. But in America, you're living down there, still maybe not the same kind of name recognition as Chris Rock. However, sold out tours in 24 countries. Most of the big comics can't do that. What does that say about what the true meaning of fame is in America?
Well, here's the thing. It's actually turning now. So it's funny. I was talking to this with one of my friends, and we're like, it's funny because you called the tour Almost Famous, and we started writing a sitcom, a buddy of mine, Ruben Paul. We started working on a sitcom for me. And it was about how, I'm almost famous. And but now I got these movies coming out, and I'm a I'm a recurring character on Life in Pieces on CBS. So things are about to change,
Yeah.
and so the show we're writing doesn't make any sense anymore because I'm like, God damn it! Every time I'm trying to do something,
I'm ahead
it
of the
gets
wave.
sabotaged.
It's great to be ahead of that kind of a wave, though.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that certainly in Canada, people know who Russell Peters is. Are there times when you still feel like an outsider here?
Not so much anymore.
No?
Maybe now with the younger generation, I kind of feel like I'm the older people's Drake. Like,
I love it, except you can pronounce
kids under 40
consonants.
have Drake, and people over 40 have me.
Nice. I'm definitely in your camp, my friend. This whole notion of race, you've done some movie works. You said before that you think race is a small factor in whether or not you get major leading roles in movies. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I think when people think of race and racism and stuff like that, I think, especially in America, it always boils down to black and white, or black, white, and Latino. So when they think of race, they don't think of Indian people or Asian people because we are the other.
Right.
And in America, South Asians are the wealthiest middle class. What are we? We're somewhere like in the wealthiest immigrant group or the most successful immigrant group in America. So we kind of fall in this weird place where we look like people they don't want to see, but we can afford to live like them. And that's not because they came there with money. They came there, studied, and became something. Whereas in Canada, the South Asians, a lot of them are right there with the black community. I always say the Indians in Canada are like the Mexicans.
Right.
Because, we do all the jobs that other people don't want to do sometimes.
Gotcha. So when it comes to your life in movies and films, what do you think some of the factors are that
have hindered me or slowed me down?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think when you're the first guy, there's a lot of side-eyed looks, like, what's he doing? And then they go, okay, so what we need to do is get something like that. And then they go and find another one who's a little younger, and or he may be better looking, or he may be more Indian looking, but they'll get somebody who's a little younger, and they'll figure it out from there. And not realizing that the guy blazing the trail for those guys is probably the one you should probably pay attention to. But it's coming around now. I think a lot of times in America, it was they thought I was, because I was Canadian, they always thought that I didn't live there. They didn't know I was there.
Yeah.
And they're always like, oh, we thought you lived in Canada. I'm like, no, I'm from Canada. I don't live there anymore. And then they were like, oh, and we couldn't afford you. I go, I don't even have a rate. What do you mean? Just offer me the gig.
Yeah.
And, the more I think that word started to spread lately, the more work I started getting all of a sudden.
Yeah. And, not all actors not all comics are great actors, but you always do such a great job. And
I've been having a great time acting.
You look like you have fun when you do it.
Yeah, it's really not rocket science. It's really fun. When you see people like, I really poured my heart. I'm like, no, you didn't. Come on, stupid. You didn't change anything.
You're not replacing a brain.
Yeah.
You're not doing open heart surgery.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of Canadians, it's really fun when you pop up, when there are like sort of cameos in movies.
Yeah, that's my favorite thing to do is that.
Yeah.
Because, the pressure's not on you.
Right.
And you come in, steal the scene, and get out of there.
Yeah, and for fans, it's like you're watching whatever movie, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, there's Russell Peters.
Yeah, I like when I get those little tweets where people are like, I just watched Chef. I didn't know you were in it. I'm like,
yeah, and it is. It's fun. It's like a little treat to your Canadian homeland.
It is, absolutely.
You live in the U.S. now. What's the mood like right now in the middle of this election craziness?
There's a lot of uncertainty in everybody. Everybody's on edge, I saw a guy downstairs wearing a Trump hat and saying, like, he's going to be the next president. I'm like, you're in Canada, stupid. Doesn't matter if he's going to be. Yeah, it's easy to be over here and be like, he's going to be the next president. We're going to be. No, you live here. It doesn't matter to us.
Yeah.
It does and it doesn't. You know what I mean?
We worry
Unless we
about
became Austria.
We worry a little bit about the immigration that's going to happen when and if. But, you were so ahead of the curve when it comes to talking about race and culture and comedy. And it seemed like you were ahead of your time. You came at a time when you could somewhat safely do it. Now there's almost this that cycle that happens when things become like, oh, you can't talk about that anymore.
Yeah.
Is any of what's happening in the States affecting what you do on stage?
Not so much right now because I'm kind of off, but I'm going to be getting back on stage to start working on a new set. And I just get up and I spit. I don't sit down and pen anything.
Right.
So, I mean, I won't know till I get on stage and try to do 45 minutes of just me talking to the crowd. And that's where I'll come up with stuff, and that's where I'll figure out where people's heads are at.
Did you watch the debate last night?
I did, yeah.
What'd you think?
He's batshit crazy.
He said it. I didn't.
He's
but
nuts,
yeah.
dude.
Yeah.
And just to be, I don't know. It's like he's got such thin skin. It just freaks me out that like somebody could just say whatever. Like I mean, comedians say whatever we want to say.
Yeah.
And we don't care how wacky it is or how offensive it is because we're comedians.
We're not looking to run the country.
Yeah, we're not trying to run the country. But when the guy who's going to have the launch codes is a trigger finger like that, little itchy trigger finger, I don't want that near me. He's going to get us all killed.
Do you ever have a situation?
You know what he's like? He's like your friend who, when you go out to a bar, who gets drunk and then wants to fight the bouncers.
Oh, yeah.
And then they drag you into it.
Because you have to do the fighting. He's gone.
Yeah. That's who he is.
Interesting. Do you ever have a situation when you're on stage that white people backlash at you?
You know, I always get this really weird, subtle kind of thing from white people that always be like, all he talks about is race. I'm like, really? All I talk about is race? That's interesting because you don't say that to Chris Rock or Dave Chappelle or any of the other guys talking about race. And then when one of their golden boys talks about race, they're like, oh my God, he's so edgy. I'm like, he's edgy, but I'm not. I'm not trying to be edgy. He's trying to be edgy. I'm not trying to be edgy. I'm telling you as it is.
Yeah. And you talk about your family and your dad.
Yeah, I mean, I keep it honest.
Yeah, absolutely. Is having the baby changing at all your comedy bent? And as she grows, will it
Well, she's
change?
almost 6 now, so, she says some pretty outrageous stuff, and she says some really funny things, and she's got a really great comedic timing and great comedic sense.
Nice.
It freaks me out sometimes. She'll say things and she'll do things that just make me go that, like, I literally laugh hysterically.
You gotta love it.
And then you try and you say it to other people, and then you realize it's really only funny to you. Because it's like trying to tell somebody your dream. And then you're like, oh, great. Like when people go, oh, you want to hear this? I had this crazy dream. And you're like, oh, great. Let me hear about it.
Yeah. Do you think if she chose to walk down your path that you would support and embrace that?
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't tell her no. I would tell her if she sucked, but.
And does she or will she know about all the good things Daddy does outside of comedy? When you were on tour, you visited some Syrian refugees in Jordan. You've got scholarships. Let's talk a little bit about that visit to those refugees in Jordan.
That was pretty wild, man. I don't really get involved politically with a lot of things.
Yeah.
And they heard I was coming there, and they asked me if I would be an ambassador for Canada. And I was like, sure, I don't know what you want me to do, because I'm not exactly the most politically correct guy, and I'm not the most, it's not that I don't try to be, I'm me.
Yeah.
I'm a regular guy who just happens to have a little bit of status now. And so I didn't know what they expected from me, but it was really eye-opening because, you watch the news, you watch the media, and the way they sell you the story is not the actual way the story's going.
That's what I was wondering. We watch and we don't know how much of that is true. When you left, what were you sort of taking away with you?
That none of them want to come. They don't want to come to Canada. They don't want to go to America. They just want to go home. Which is, and when you break it down to yourself, you have to always make it what would you want? Somebody kicks you out of your house because they want to live in it, but all your stuff is still there. And then you're like, and they make you live in a hotel, and you're like, can I just go home? The guys have left your house, but it's still not safe. You know what I mean? It's
We can kind of relate here.
I think you know what I'm talking about.
We certainly do.
Yeah.
You say that success in comedy is all about talking about relatable things. As your career continues, what will some of those relatable things be?
I don't know. I think if you could forecast it would be so much easier. But it's one of those things. It's an as it happens kind of game.
Now you've toured all over the world, selling out 24 countries. You have made the Forbes list. You have written a book. You've got all kinds of specials. What's the thing? You've become a daddy. That's a pretty big creative process. You created a person. What is
Right out of my dirty parts.
what is something that you want to do that you haven't done yet in this crazy
I don't know.
journey?
I don't know because everything just keeps happening.
Really?
And as things are happening, I'm like, oh, that's cool. There's things that happen that I didn't know I wanted to do, and then I do them, and I'm like, this is so cool. And the only reason I didn't know I wanted to do them because probably in my head it was like, you could never do that, so don't put that in your head.
So it really is that ordinary guy thing, and then just
they're really
things.
and when you grow up normal, you know what I mean, in a blue collar house in a blue collar part of town. And everybody around you is just doing normal, regular things, working 9 to 5, and nobody's living lavish. And I remember growing up, somebody who had air conditioning in their car was fancy to us.
Yeah. Automatic windows.
Automatic, yeah, that was like, wow, those people are loaded.
Yeah.
And you don't, now you look back and you go, oh, I guess their dad just wanted to spend the extra $100 at that time. But I just, it's everything is new to me still. And this is 27 years of doing stand-up. The stand-up game's not new to me, but all the things that are happening are still new to me. Celebrity friends are new to me. It always freaks me out when I have and I'm fans with a lot of people I'm friends with.
Yeah.
So like Michael J. White will come over to my house and watch fights. He was Black Dynamite. Black Dynamite's one of my favorite movies. Do you see Black Dynamite?
I did not.
Well, and he was Spawn and all that. But, he comes to the house and we just talk about regular guy stuff. And, I'm having a birthday party at my house this weekend coming up, a barbecue. Not a birthday party, barbecue. Alan Thicke will be there. You know what I mean?
Isn't that wild?
Yeah, and and the thing is when I hang out with Alan Thicke, it's, he's an older guy, but I always try to remind him because, his son's famous now.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, to us growing up in Brampton, your parents were famous to us because your dad was a doctor.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And he goes, that's right. That's right. Where's he from again? He told me, I'm from Kirkland Lake. That's where I was born. Mike, Carol, and I have been talking.
It is kind of a wild ride that you're on, my friend.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking the time to come and chat
That's
with
it? We're
me
done?
about it. We're done. That's it.
Oh, Canderella.